This DVMax training session will discuss the use of the appointment book within DVMax. One can access the appointment book in one of several ways. One can click the appointment button of the window list, which takes us directly to the appointment scheduler screen, or, if we close that window, we can use the appointment button on the command palette, which takes us to the exact same appointment scheduler screen. Notice that the appointment scheduler is laid out in various columns. The columns, depending on your facility's needs, may be used to represent individual clinicians, or even a section for notes to staff people for various types of reminders, or technician appointments, or grooming appointments, or any other type of appointment that is necessary. One can even schedule as a column an ultrasound machine or the use of a surgical suite. Each of these listed appointments is directly connected to either a client or a patient. If we double-click on one of these particular appointments, it opens up that appointment so that we can view what the purpose of that appointment would be. We can also go directly from the appointment scheduler to access that particular patient's record. The Go To button will take us directly to the attached record. This points out the benefit of making the appointment referable to a patient rather than to the client, because when you click the Go To button, it will go directly to that patient's record. In this case, it took us directly to Emily's record since that was the patient for whom the appointment had been scheduled. If we wanted to make an appointment directly from a patient's screen, we would select to set or find an appointment directly from the patient menu of that particular patient's screen. This is another way to access the appointment scheduler. Notice it's exactly the same appointment scheduler book. When viewing the appointment scheduler at the top left, we can see that there's a calendar. Notice that today is represented by the icon in blue. If the patient is to be scheduled for an appointment in the future, when we click on that future date, notice that date is represented on the calendar in red. Blue is today's date, red is the date upon which we are scheduling right now. If we would like to schedule an appointment for this patient with Dr. Laurie at, say, 12 noon, we can simply click and drag across the block of time in which we're interested. Notice that by doing so, DVMax has automatically completed the information pertaining to this particular patient. All we need to do is to insert what the purpose of this visit would be. In this case, DVMax has been set to ask for the staff code of the staff person making this appointment. In this case, we enter in the staff code and click OK. As we'll see in a few moments, this will permit us to track who made the appointment. Notice that it also set the color of this appointment based on the color of the column for Dr. Laurie. That means should we ever have to move this appointment to a different staff person, DVMax will be able to maintain the color so we know from which column it originally came. DVMax also provides the ability to search for an appointment for this patient that was made for some future date. For instance, let's suppose the client calls up and asks when their next appointment is for Emily. We can go to the patient menu, select Set/Find Appointment. That takes us to today's appointment scheduler. If what we're looking for is the next appointment for this patient, we can click Find Next Appointment, and indeed it jumps to the next appointment date for this particular individual, which is today. If we click again, it jumps to the next appointment for this particular patient, which is on the 23rd. There it is. If we open up that patient record, we can see not only the information that was entered on the date that the appointment was originally made, but also there's evidence of who made the appointment, what date it was made, and at what time of day it was made. As a matter of illustration, let's move this appointment to a different clinician. Let's suppose Dr. Bass will be taking care of this appointment rather than Dr. Laurie. Notice DVMax pops up a message asking, are you sure that you want to move it to a different staff person? If we say yes, it then asks who is the individual that is currently going to take responsibility for this move. In this case, let's suppose it's a different individual. Notice that the color of the appointment remained the color that was originally set by Dr. Laurie's column. We know, therefore, that this must have come from Dr. Laurie's column when it was moved to Dr. Bass. If we double-click on the appointment, we can see that there's evidence that this particular appointment had been modified at 12:12 on the 11th. If we click the tiny arrow to the left of the word modified, notice that it tells us who created the appointment and who modified the appointment. This can be very helpful when a client indicates that they don't remember moving an appointment, or we're not sure who took care of them when the appointment was initially made or moved. We have now seen that DVMax permits the ability to make an appointment from a patient's screen, but it's also possible to make an appointment from a client's screen. Let's take a look at a client's screen. In this case, perhaps this client wishes to make an appointment for multiple pets during the same visit. If we wish, we can make an appointment directly for the client rather than for the patient, keeping in mind that this appointment will be directly linked to the client's screen and not to a patient's screen. If the client wishes to come in on, say, the 23rd, we can click on the 23rd. We can drag across the time necessary for the column desired, and then type in the reason for this appointment. Again, we enter a staff code. It's also possible to extend the time of this particular appointment either by dragging it to a longer time, and again entering in a staff code because we just modified that appointment, or we could go back to that appointment, double-click on the appointment, and we can change the time from within the appointment scheduling screen. And again, we enter in a staff code. This next means of making an appointment is probably the most effective and useful on a daily basis. If a client were to call your office and say, "I'd like to make an appointment," you might immediately open the appointment book. The next question would be, what date would be best for you? If the client indicates the 23rd, you now jump to the 23rd. If they then say, "I would like to come in to see Dr. Bass at 4 o'clock," and you could say, "We have an opening." By dragging across that block of time, notice DVMax opens up to a blank appointment. You then might ask, "Have we ever seen your pets before?" If the individual says yes, you might then type in the first few letters of the last name of that client. That takes us directly to that client. We might then ask, for which of your pets will this appointment apply? If we have multiple pets already in the DVMax database, we can click the little magnifying lens, which will bring up a list of those animals that belong to this particular client. If the client indicates that they wish to make the appointment for Monk, we simply OK that, and notice information for Monk is automatically inserted into the appointment screen. We then can indicate what the purpose of this visit will be, and then click OK. Again, a staff code will be entered, and notice the appointment has automatically been inserted directly into the column for Dr. Bass. Should it become necessary to move that appointment to a different day or time or staff person, we can simply click to highlight that appointment and then decide to move that appointment by clicking the Move Appointment button. DVMax indicates that it is necessary now to pick the new time and date for this appointment. If indeed the client says they would prefer to come in on the 25th, we could advise them that they might be able to come in at 2:30 because there is a time block open for the same clinician at 2:30. By simply highlighting that box, DVMax now asks what the staff code indicator will be and has now inserted the exact same appointment into the new time and day, but for the same clinician. DVMax also provides the ability to have specified predetermined appointment types. For instance, if we go back to the appointment book and we drag across a 30-minute block of time for a client whose last name is Bass, for a patient whose name is Martini, we're taken directly to the appointment scheduler's screen. Notice that the appointment is predetermined to be 30 minutes. That's because each of the blocks on this particular schedule happen to be 30-minute blocks. We have the ability to have predetermined appointment types. If this is indeed a brand new or unknown client, meaning a client that has never been here before and we don't have any basic information for them, they would indeed be a new or unknown appointment type. If it's for a client, meaning not for a specified pet, but rather for the client, then it would be identified as a client appointment. If it's for a specified patient that exists in our database, DVMax will assign that to be an automatic patient appointment. If, however, it's for a new client or first visit, that's a specified appointment type, as is recheck appointment, suture removal appointment, or would be an ultrasound appointment, or any other type of appointment that is specified by your facility. That can have its own predetermined parameters. In this case, notice that it automatically set the appointment time from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. We can then identify that this is indeed a new pet exam. When we click OK, we then again enter in the staff code of the individual making this appointment. And notice, not only did it automatically get changed to a 45-minute appointment from a 30-minute appointment, but the color is specific to this appointment type. In this case, a new pet exam. Again, there can be as many different types of appointments as needed by your facility, and each type of appointment can have its own time frames. For instance, let's make another appointment. Last name is M-A-N-Z. Let's suppose it's for a pet whose name is Monk. And let's suppose the appointment type in this particular case is just to have a suture removal from a previous surgery. Notice that the appointment time just got changed from 30 minutes to 10 minutes. Again, we'll enter in the staff code of the individual making this appointment. And again, notice that the color also got changed, and aside from the time being shortened down to 10 minutes, and again, it's specifically for a suture removal for this animal, and it's only a 10-minute appointment. Your facility may have as many different types of appointments as required. DVMax also permits us to move appointments within a specified day. For instance, if we need to move the appointment that was made for Martini to a different time of day, we can simply grab it by left-clicking on that item and dragging it to a new time. Again, it's asking for our staff code to confirm who made this change. It's also possible to move this appointment to a different column or a different staff person by moving it laterally. If we do that, DVMax will double check to be sure that it was the intent to move it to a different staff person. If that was not indeed the intent, we can click No, and the appointment will go back to its originating position. If indeed we do wish to move it to another column, we this time would say, yes, we did intend to proceed with this move, and again, it's asking us for the staff person's identification so that we can track who made these changes. To show what's happening with regard to making all these changes, again, we'll open up the appointment and click on the little arrow to the left of the word modified, and we can see when it was made and when it was modified and who accomplished each of those tasks. It's also possible to set a color for a specific appointment. That's, in other words, to alert a staff person to a problem or a caution or a concern. And your facility can come up with the meanings of each of those individual colors. To set a color, hold down the Control button while clicking on the appointment. Notice that when I held down the Control button, the little hand of the cursor turned into a paintbrush. Now, left-clicking on the appointment, we are given a color palette from which we can choose any color. Perhaps red would identify some form of caution, or blue would have a different meaning, or green would have a different meaning. This is different from the colors that are assigned by each individual column. If we need to print out today's schedule, which is a common occurrence, we can click the File menu and select to print. When we select Print, we can select what printer should be the destination. In this case, we can print this to the screen so we can see what this will look like. Notice it shows each individual column with the appointments and the time of day that each appointment begins, as well as the duration of each appointment. When printed, each of these sheets can be given to the clinicians for whom each column is set.